Good afternoon. I'm Sonia Melendez, Senior Associate Vice President in the Office of Civic Engagement and co-chair of the Diversity Leadership Council. On behalf of the University of Chicago, we would like to welcome you to this reception and thank you for your presence today. We are here to celebrate and reflect on the legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., and honor two individuals who embody Dr. King's beliefs through their work, energy, commitment to our community, to our city, and to our nation. Let's take a moment to give our first very special welcome to our honorees, Ms. Kimberly Ransom and Mr. Michael Bennett. Also joining me this afternoon on the stage is the University of Chicago's 13th president, Robert Zimmer, and my co-chair of the Diversity Leadership Council, Bill McDade. Welcome. Before I invite President Zimmer to the podium, I would like to take a moment to recognize a few special guests and elected officials who have joined us this afternoon. First, Alderman Pat Dowell of the 3rd Ward. State Representative Barbara Flynn Curry. And Dr. Timuel Black, who is an honored civic leader in the city of Chicago. Now it is my pleasure to welcome President Zimmer to the podium for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sonia, and welcome everyone to the University of Chicago and to our celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. From the very beginning, from the university's inception, the university has been built on a foundation of inclusion and acceptance. It's been open to men and women. It's been open to those of all cultures, religions, and ethnicities, and it's been so again since the very beginning. And when you focus on what happened during the period from 1890, when the university began, to the period now, and to all the issues that so many institutions have had about non-acceptance, that I think that is a legacy of which the university can and should be very proud. The reason for this is that we embrace diversity and recognize that it's a fundamental aspect of this university's mission, which enriches the nature of inquiry and that guides our search for understanding. That search reaches beyond our laboratories, libraries, and classrooms as we work hand in hand with the surrounding community. Our medical center provides extraordinary medical care on the south side of Chicago, and of course beyond that. That care will soon be available at the new Center for Care and Discovery, which will be welcoming patients very soon, next month, in fact. Through the Urban Education Institute of the University of Chicago and the University of Chicago Charter Schools, we apply the very rigorous research that we do, developing best practice to improve urban schooling, and hopefully, now we're seeing successfully, creating national models for urban school education. Just last fall, we were very pleased and proud to announce UChicago Promise, which builds on a strong foundation of programs and initiatives that have been sponsored by the university and that help high school students from the city of Chicago get their best chance at an excellent education, whether it's here or at another four-year college or university. Like all things that are of importance of value, our commitment to diversity is not something static. It's not something that we take for granted. There's more that we can do, more that we should do, and indeed more that we will do. In 2007, I appointed the Diversity Leadership Council, and this was to further enhance what I believe then, and believe only more so now, to be one of the university's most important qualities. The council is comprised of senior administrators from across the university, including the academic divisions, professional schools, the medical center, and administrative areas. The council works to ensure that our commitment to diversity is reflected in staff employment, contacts and contracts with local businesses, purchasing, professional services, and our relationship with surrounding neighborhoods. The Diversity Leadership Council has made great strides in these efforts, and I would like to recognize them today. I know a number of members are here, so if you could just indicate your presence by standing or waving your hand. I just want all of us to say thank you. Now, this council is joined by faculty, students, staff, and alumni, and neighbors who work diligently to foster a community of inclusion. 2 years after the establishment of the council, the Diversity Leadership Boards were established, one for a university staff member and one for a university alum. These awards are made every year in conjunction with our celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to acknowledge staff and alumni whose work has embodied Dr. King's values and his commitment to equal opportunity and freedom for all. And now it's my great pleasure to announce and to make these awards. And I just want to say again how important these awards are to us. We're a community that has many activities. You look across the university, you see an extraordinary range of activities, and the kinds of values that we share in common are essential to defining who we are and what we are. And the awards that we give today are representative of our highest aspirations of what it means to be a community that is devoted to inclusion, to diversity, and to bringing people together in an environment of inquiry and participation. So these awards are meaningful, I know, to all of us in the room, and they're meaningful to the university, and I will say they're very meaningful to me personally. So our first award is the Diversity Leadership Staff Award. With this award, we recognize a university staff member who displays leadership in fostering diversity both on campus and within the surrounding community. This year's winner is Kim Ransom. Who is the inaugural director of the University of Chicago Collegiate Scholars Program. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about Kim. So throughout her career, Kim has served as a leader and mentor for hundreds of children in the Chicago public school system, who have gone on to attend many highly selective universities across the country. Most important among these, of course, is the University of Chicago, but it also includes other places such as Harvard, Princeton, and Yale. Kim first experienced college herself when she was 5 years old. She tagged along while her mother took classes at Chicago State. And even at that early age, Kim could understand the power of education. After graduating from the Chicago Public Schools, Kim earned her bachelor's in business management from Bradley University, and later her master's in English from DePaul. She volunteered in the Elliott Donnelly Chicago Youth Center in Bronzeville, where she coordinated and directed a number of programs serving Chicago teens and strengthening community partnerships. Kim went on to work at Columbia College in Chicago, where she rose to become director of a multi-school college prep program. In 2003, Kim's dedication led her to found the Collegiate Scholars Program at the University of Chicago. A key part of what is now UChicago Promise, this program places high-achieving Chicago Public School sophomores, juniors, and seniors in summer classes with university professors, in addition to providing internships, college application workshops, and other activities. Program innovations highlight Kim's creativity and her deep understanding of what Chicago high school students need to succeed in college. As an example, she helped arrange an afternoon with director and producer Spike Lee for Collegiate scholars and other students, and somewhat in a different direction than Spike Lee, she forged a partnership with Goldman Sachs through which students received laptop computers for outstanding performance in their entrepreneurship course. As evidence of Kim's determination and focus, every Collegiate scholar over the past 8 years has attended a 4-year college. Really quite remarkable. And 70% of these students have been accepted at a highly competitive, selective college and university. In a city where 40% of students don't graduate from high school, these are, of course, very remarkable numbers. Kim's honors include being named a 2010 Lead the Way Fellow by New York University's Women of Color Policy Network. She was also named one of 10 Chicago Community Trust Fellows in 2011, an honor that recognizes Kim's commitment to helping public school students succeed at top-tier universities. In her leadership, mentorship, creativity, and imagination, Kim has served as an inspiration to hundreds of students over the years, including changing the trajectory of their lives through educational opportunities. So Kim, would you please join me at the podium? So it is with great pleasure that we present you with the 2013 Diversity Leadership Staff Award. I want to thank you for everything you're doing for the university, and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to thank President Zimmer, Provost Tom Rosenbaum, Deputy Provost for Research and Minority Issues, Dr. Bill McDade, and the entire Diversity Leadership Council for this outstanding honor. I would also like to thank Vice President of Civic Engagement, Derek Douglas, and my staff, Jamie Baldwin and Abel Ochoa, for nominating me. I would like to thank Senior Vice President of Civic Engagement, Sonia Malunda, for her exceptional leadership, and my phenomenal, super amazing staff, Vershawn Saunders, Jacqueline Gaines, Abel Ochoa, and Jamie Baldwin for their passion, intellect, humor, and unwavering support as we help Chicago Public School students throughout the city prepare for college success at highly selective colleges nationwide. It is our vision that each of them will become civically engaged leaders. I have to thank the 456 students and alumni, one of whom, Ebony Turner, is here and attending my alma mater, Bradley University. I would like to thank them because they've built a legacy that inspires other programs across the country to share this vision of developing students from urban communities who are at risk of great leadership. When I was a young girl, oh, I'm sorry, there's a couple more people I didn't thank, and I would be in trouble, I might get a whooping. I would like to certainly thank my mom and dad, Dolores and Claude Ransom. because they are truly my foundation. And I would also like to thank my amazing mentor, Doyle Richardson, who's here in the room and who used to run the Neighborhood Schools program and is a graduate of the university and been here 36 years. Finally, I would like to thank my daughter, Ella, who makes everything in life matter. Now, when I was a young girl attending Charles H. Wacker Public School on the south side of Chicago, there were two things that were daily ritual. Each day, my classmates and I were required to stand, place our right hand on our hearts, and say the Pledge of Allegiance. And immediately following, we were required to sing, Lift Every Voice and Sing. Though I sang the song for nearly 2,000 days, from kindergarten until I left Wacker in the 6th grade, I didn't know it was first publicly performed as a poem by 500 school children at segregated Edwin M. Stanton School in Jacksonville, Florida, in celebration of President Lincoln's birthday. The school's principal, James Weldon Johnson, wrote the poem to welcome guest speaker Booker T. Washington to the school that day. I only knew that our music teacher, Miss Edna Burrell Perry, taught the song and demanded we bellow out each line on key every day. Miss Perry taught for over 4 decades in Chicago public schools. In 2006, I stood with hundreds of former students at a small church on 55th in South Indiana to give homage to our shero as we laid her to rest. Even standing there nearly 40 years later, I didn't know Miss Perry was a trailblazer. In 1957, Miss Perry was the first African-American teacher at any school in the Bridgeport community. And though many parents rushed to take their children out of her class, when they learned how the remaining students excelled, they rushed to get their students back into her class. That was the power of Miss Perry. I never knew her struggles. I only knew she blazed the halls of Wacker Elementary School with a stride and presence that made me think she owned the floors, the walls, our faces, and the words that would vibrate out of our throats until the song sat plump in our hearts. The song taught us over and over again the power of one collective voice. That voice could speak up and out. It could ring heaven and earth. It could resound loud as the roaring seas. Together, it was full of faith, full of hope. It was resilient. It could march and win victories. Our daily ritual had a profound effect on me, and so, armed with the passion to be critically and civically engaged, to lead and be an agent of change in the 4th grade, I ran for my first and last political office, gym leader. Though my responsibilities have grown a bit since 1979, it was in my youth, day after day, singing with friends, and living in the glow of Miss Perry's high footsteps and even her higher expectations that I learned I could stand in a collective voice of many for something. To me, it is the most important work we can do to plant a song in a child's heart that will seed purpose. According to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whose legacy we celebrate today, we must remember that intelligence is not enough. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education. The complete education gives one not only power of concentration, but worthy objectives upon which to concentrate. I have been fortunate to stand among a diverse collective voice of amazing faculty, staff, and students. For nearly 10 years here at the University of Chicago, I have been singing with friends. Through faith with hope together in the Office of Civic Engagement, we have seeded and supported tremendous victories for public school students of Chicago and communities that support them. Together, through the Neighborhood Schools program, we've placed hundreds of University of Chicago undergraduate students in schools to tutor thousands and support classroom teachers. Through the Office of Special Programs launched by the late Dr. Larry Hawkins, we've spent over 30 years sending thousands of first-generation and low-income youth to colleges across the nation. Through the Woodlawn Children's Promise, we have mobilized the collective efforts of many community stakeholders, faculty, staff, and leaders to have a tremendous impact on schools in Woodlawn. Through a partnership with the Urban Education Institute, we have launched charter schools and furthered our commitment to educating youth while also building strong teaching and scholarship. Recently, we launched the University of Chicago Promise. And finally, through Collegiate Scholars, we have shaped a legacy of diverse Chicago public school students attending the finest colleges across the nation and who are poised to use their education to concentrate on worthy objectives in our world. In concert, we are building bridges, changing lives, creating leaders, and strengthening communities. I am proud of the work. I am proud to serve here and so very honored to receive the 2013 Diversity Leadership Award. Ms. Perry would be proud. I look forward to my daily ritual at the University of Chicago of singing with friends. Thank you.
That was beautiful. Our second award this afternoon is the Diversity Leadership Alumni Award, with which we highlight the contributions of alumni who advance the cause of social justice in our society. Now, we all know that the University of Chicago alumni go on and do great things in many, many fields of human endeavor, include some of the world's most prominent thinkers, inventors, business people, and researchers. So choosing a candidate to receive an alumni award is always a difficult task because we actually have a pretty strong pool of people. And so I'm very pleased at our winner this year, our 2013 Diversity Leadership Alumni Award, who is Michael Bennett. And now I'll tell you something about Michael. So Michael received his bachelor's degree in sociology from Kent State University. He earned both his master's and doctoral degree from the School of Social Services Administration here at the University of Chicago. And in this work, he had a particular focus on community organization and economic development. Throughout his career, Michael has continued that combined focus, dedicating himself to strong communities, economic progress, and social justice. For over a decade, Michael served as the executive director of the Monsignor John J. Egan Urban Center at DePaul University. With his colleagues, Michael aimed to build bridges between the community and DePaul and to address critical urban problems such as poverty through teaching, service, and scholarship. He's currently an associate professor on the faculty of DePaul's Department of Sociology. He came to DePaul from the University of Illinois at Chicago, where he was among the school's first Great City Scholars program that he himself helped to develop. He's held positions at Northwestern, Columbia College, universities in Johannesburg, South Africa, and here at the University of Chicago in the School of Social Services Administration. Writing on topics ranging from Black and Latino cooperation to the rebirth of Bronzeville, from empowerment zones to Chicago's 2016 Olympics bid, Michael is a prolific author and public speaker. His work has been described as compelling, rich in detail and expertise, and continuing the grand tradition of Chicago sociology. Michael has reached beyond the classroom working towards economic progress locally and globally through efforts such as his work with Shore Bank, a community development bank headquartered here in Chicago. In 1978, he helped launch the Neighborhood Institute, and ultimately he oversaw that organization's economic development, job training, community and tenant organizing, housing development, and cultural programs. For the past 18 years, he has also served on the board of Shared Interest, which supports indigenous enterprises in South Africa. Among his extensive community involvement, he currently serves on the board of Chapin Hall at the University of Chicago. He chairs the board of directors of the Chicago-based Fathers, Families, and Health Communities Collaborative, which helps low-income, non-custodial fathers enrich their children's lives. Michael describes himself as an applied sociologist. Through his academic and community work, he builds programs that build communities. And Michael, would you please join me at the podium? Congratulations. Thank you very much. So I'm very pleased to present Michael Bennett with the 2013 Diversity Leadership Alumni Award. So congratulations, Michael.
Thank you very much. Well, good evening. All right. Thank you, President Zimmer. Diversity Council Award is, to me, equivalent to these other awards you're hearing about this season, the Academy Awards, all that stuff. That's what it's more like to me. One of my former students, and we were trying to figure out today exactly when he was in my class back in Columbia College, but James Williams called me and asked if he could nominate me for this award. So I kind of snickered and said, yeah, go ahead if you want to be embarrassed. I had known some of the previous recipients, people who had contributed mightily to our society. And although it's not false modesty, I did not in any way consider myself on that plane. So I said, go ahead, James, nominate me. And a couple weeks later, he called and said, congratulations, you won. I said, well, thank you very much. So first I have to thank James for nominating me for this award. Thank you, James. I appreciate that. Now I have to go on to say that I'm in good company with James's nomination. He is to be honored on January 25th as one of the Men of Excellence in Chicago. So let's give James another hand. I never can stand before a group that says anything about my degrees without acknowledging someone who has passed on, but who was critical to me receiving mine. His name is Irving G. Spergel. Irving Spergel was a longtime professor in the School of Social Service Administration, longtime mentor of mine. And any of you who've gone through this doctoral process will understand this. Irv was the chairman of my dissertation committee for 14 years. And every time I get up, anywhere, and he passed away a few years ago, but when I start this role, he starts getting embarrassed. So he's getting embarrassed somewhere right now. But it was Irv Spergel that was a major contribution to my life. I also have to thank, of course, my family and my mother-in-law, Loretta Griffin, my brother-in-law, Michael Griffin, came in from South Africa, not just for me, but he came in from South Africa. And my lovely wife, Walida Bennett. So for family, I thank you. And then the third grouping, and this is it. This is not an Academy Award thank you speech. But the third grouping are a group of folk who've hung with me through thick and thin, all right? And some of them are scattered around, some of them are at this table, but I have a group of friends who you can count on, rain or shine. And as they all know, there's been quite a few clouds and rain in our lives recently. But I have to acknowledge my friends. So wherever you are, just raise your hand. Thank you. For me, diversity and an interest in this notion of diversity started very early in a little small town called Sandusky, Ohio. Anybody in here ever hear of Sandusky, Ohio? Other than Cedar Point? Well, that's okay. I don't care how, Cedar Point. And what I noticed in Sandusky as I was growing up, it was a small town, about 45,000 when I was growing up, that had 3 nodes of the economy. It was a very strong manufacturing town. We supplied any and everything that an automobile needed for Detroit. Glass for the windows, rubber, aluminum, steel. And we used to say in Sandusky when I was growing up, if you didn't have at least 1.5 jobs, it was because you didn't want to work. Everybody had a job. The other node of the economy was farming. Right outside of our town were a number of farms. And since Sandusky was the county seat of Erie County, most of that produce came in there. A lot of jobs were created. And the third node was the one that people probably might know most. It was the node of vacation land, amusement, that type of thing for Cedar Point. And Cedar Point actually was the second largest amusement park in the country before Disney World was built. 3 nodes of the economy. So now we know what happened to farming. Went away. Large farms consumed smaller farms. Technology changed things. We know what happened to manufacturing. Went away, basically, with the demise of the auto industry and the steel industry. And so Sandusky was and is left with one node, which is the vacation land amusement. And if you know anything about the dynamics of economics and labor, you know what that did to the wage and salary and income of families. My father worked in a factory all his life, but he was able to send 4 of us to college. Can't do that anymore in Sandusky, Ohio. And it was that kind of dynamic that got me interested in this notion of diversity, because it was all about equity and access to opportunity. Now, I read at one point in time, but I wasn't quite clear on what it meant. And I always attribute this to E.F. Schumacher in his book, Small is Beautiful, but somebody might correct me later. And what Schumacher said was that in our society, we reward people in inverse proportion to their proximity to production. He says, in our society, we reward people in inverse proportion to their proximity to production. And I thought about that. And I knew my dad worked hard and my uncles worked hard, but they weren't making as much money as some of the folk who were higher up and further away from the factory. But it really hit home in more recent times. Anybody watch Undercover Boss? If you have any question about what Schumacher said, you can see it there. The guy in the tower can't make the donuts, right? It was that kind of realization that kind of settled into me, even unknowingly, that created an interest in this thing we now call diversity. And it's not just racial or class, but it's diversity as it relates to access to opportunity. Access to opportunity. And that's why we should be so proud of the work that Kim is doing in her program, because it's all about opening doors to access to opportunity that people never would think they might have. Two other things that I would like to mention before I sit down. One is that as I've often thought about Dr. Martin Luther King, and it's really interesting, my friend Arvis Averett and I were talking about it the other day, they dwell on the I have a dream part of his speech. But they don't talk about some of the other aspects of his speech and his life. He talked about this nation issuing a check with insufficient funds to its citizens of color, right? He wasn't all sweetness and light about I have a dream. It was about some of the inequities in our society that we have to face. And he was doing okay until he started talking about the war, right? People just love little Dr. King, but he started talking about the war. And what he was talking about there was inequity. Who was fighting? Who was staying home? Access to opportunity. So what inspired me about Dr. King may not have been the most popular aspects of some of his writings and his quotations. It was more about the deep commitment he had to providing opportunity for others. So in my own small way, and I truly appreciate this acknowledgement, in my own small way, I've had an opportunity to serve, and I'm very grateful for that. When I graduated with a master's degree from SSA, I had raised so much hell about the lack of students of color in the place. Harold Richmond, who was then the dean, said, stop talking about it and do something about it. He hired me to be assistant dean of students, and my job was recruitment, opportunities to serve, you know. And so what I'm happy about, I'm grateful for, I'm thankful for the opportunities to serve, and I'm also thankful for this particular award. Thank you very much. Thank you. Sonia, my dear.
Congratulations.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, dear. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
So thank you, Michael, and thank you, President Zimmer. In the closing words to his book, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community, Dr. King wrote, "We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, There is such a thing as being too late. Thank you, Dr. Bennett and Kim, for being right on time. Your continued commitment to opening doors to equity, justice, and the success of our communities and to our young people in them will impact lives far into the future. We'd also like to thank those who nominated you for these awards, Derek Douglas for his nomination of Kim Ransom, and James Williams for his nomination of Michael Bennett. And despite Michael's modesty, the competition was substantial for this award. The DLC labored hard and long to determine the best choice, and clearly we were successful. But in the tradition of the University of Chicago, we don't shy away from hard questions. And in fact, we would like more work to do. The act of nomination is an act of appreciation, of celebration and recognition for work that often goes unnoticed. We encourage those who've joined us today and this evening to offer nominations to the Diversity Leadership Council for the 2014 Diversity Leadership Awards. And you can do this by visiting the University's diversity website. We seek the best individuals to offer this opportunity, and we are confident that those in the room will help contribute to the richness of those who are in the nomination process. As we conclude, I am pleased to welcome you all to join us at 6 o'clock at Rockefeller Chapel for the university's main Martin Luther King celebration. Tonight, we are honored to have Frank P. Hickson Distinguished Service Professor in the School of Social Service Administration, Dr. Charles Payne, in conversation with our university guest, author, associate producer of Eyes on the Prize for Public Broadcasting System, and activist Judy Richardson. As colleagues in the civil rights movement, their conversation gives us the unique opportunity to hear reflections on a past so important to our present ideas about our future. Please join us at Rockefeller for this special conversation, and thank you once again for coming this evening.